Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
So you're able to build an entire list of what your TAM might look like by pulling everybody who has a seller account on Amazon, and then you're able to create tiers of your ideal customer profile, which is not just your TAM, but also what attributes do they have that'll make them look like somebody who would be a buyer, in the near term. And then you're able to tier that out. And you might say like your low hanging fruit, your 5-star person has that plus these extra attributes. So we can tell, how much they're doing in sales, how long they've been on the platform for, if they're using a third-party seller account, whatever it is, then that goes into your number 1 bucket. Number 2 maybe has a few of the common denominators, but not as many. Number 3, and so on, and so on. And so when you go to market, you want to go after your low-hanging fruit first. Obviously, it's the easiest wins for you. So you want, if your success, you could have the best messaging in the world, you could have the best product in the world, but if you're going after somebody who's not likely to buy your product, then you're wasting your time. So your success in the very beginning is contingent on making sure you're going after people who are buyers. You don't want to be wasting a second of your time early on, especially. So then you go from there to the next step, I guess, in your process. You've got your target audience. It seems like you already have somebody who's happy with your product. That's beautiful because you can pull so much information out of them to help sell your future customers. So like, what are the things that they love about it? What are the things that they couldn't live without? How are you framing the conversations with them in order to pull those nuggets of wisdom out of them so that you can use that in your sales process? Is there a customer story you can create that you can use as supporting evidence to say, hey, real companies are getting real value out of this. So you've got that first one that loves it. You got another 5 signed up. You've got enough to go create those materials and start telling that story and reaching out to those companies and getting them to hear, how much success that other companies are having by using you guys. I think for companies that don't have any customers yet, they have to go out and do customer development before they have the right to sell anything. And it actually is one of those interesting things where, they think the old expression is like, if you need money, ask for advice. If you need advice, ask for money. If you start asking companies in your space for advice, like, hey, would this be interesting to you? If you have any companies that you can ask that to, you might end up finding a customer out of that. But most importantly, you'll get some information from them and saying like, well, here's what we would pay. Here's what we would pay for, and here's how much we pay for it. And then you got to look at your product and say, okay, well, do I have what they would pay for? Are they interested in this? Or are there pivots that I need to make or iterations that I need to make in order to make this thing more viable? And I wouldn't just do that based off one company's opinion. But if you talk to 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 companies and you keep hearing that, then guess what? You got to go make those moves, because what you have right now, people aren't going to pay for. But what you could have, people can pay for, and it might be just small tweaks and things like that.
Okay, so let's assume that we've gone through that exercise and we've, through sheer hustle, have managed to sell maybe 10. And so we know that we've got pretty decent product market fit. Now we need to start scaling it up. We need to start building a team. So obviously there's going to be messages that we're going to take what we learned from these conversations, from these first 6, 8, 10 customers, and try and weave that into our messaging as best we can. Where do we go from there? I mean, is it email? Is it LinkedIn? Are we going to tweet at these people? Like what are the actual mechanisms of communication look like? And is it all manual?
Yeah.
Can we automate portions of it? This
is where sales really starts to become, less and less of a silver bullet over time, it's one of the things that it frustrates me about some of the content that is produced out there and the education that is out there, because everybody thinks like one size fits all. Like, all right, you're going to load these people up into, a sequence, and then You're going to do a phone call and then an email and then a phone call and email, and then you'll do that for 14 days and it's done. It's like, that's not sales. Like and outreach, like we give you the technology to power successful sales teams, but technology is a magnifying glass. So if you do things poorly, it's just going to be worse. You're just going to do it worse. If you do things really well, it's going to magnify it. It's going to make it amazing. And that was I think a direct quote from Bill Gates. The technology is a magnifying glass piece. I mean, that's like, it's well known across the industry. So you don't want to just, you want to be able to start trying some things right out of the gate and seeing what works and then iterating on that. But I wouldn't say that, there's any right or wrong answer to what that next step is. What I will say is the easiest thing to do is go find where those people live and understand what those people's day-to-days look like before you go and design any sort of sequence or process for reaching out to them. So you've got these 10 customers. Can you talk to them and ask them what their day-to-day looks like? Where do they spend their time? And what you might surface is like, okay, I'm never at a computer. I only check email on my phone. I don't listen to voicemails. I don't have time. I do pick up cold calls. I don't pick up calls from, numbers outside of X, Y, and Z. And again, you might find some consistent themes there. There are some things that it might be, obscure or, only to that individual, but there could be some really consistent themes. Turns out your buyer never sits in front of a computer. They only ever read emails out of their phone. All right. So maybe that means you still email them, but your emails are completely different. You're not including, long emails, a ton of information, a bunch of PDFs and things like that. Maybe instead you're linking out to stuff, or you're making it, conversational, short and sweet, different call to action, whatever it is. But like understanding their day to day is very important for understanding like how you're going to get in touch with these people. If you find out that a vast amount of them don't pick up cold calls but do listen to voicemails, then like leaving voicemails should be a key part of your initial process. And again, you'll iterate over time based on the success that you're having. And the same thing with the channels that you use. The people that you're selling to may never spend a second on LinkedIn. They don't live on LinkedIn. They don't spend any time on Twitter. You sell to salespeople, maybe they all spend their time on LinkedIn online, but they don't spend any time on Twitter. Okay, maybe LinkedIn's a good channel then, if they spend that much time on LinkedIn to reach out to them, to send a compelling offer. What about communities? Where are these people living online during their day-to-day? So if you're selling to Amazon sellers, are there communities that they spend time in on Facebook groups, on Reddit, on other threads that you can reach out to them on, or start to build relationships on, where you can find them and eventually sell to them. And I think the biggest thing is making sure you're delivering value and being a resource and a trusted consultant, and not seen as a salesperson. You want people to feel like they bought and not were sold to. And so how do you create that vibe, that persona? It's really about creating value for people and for sharing industry knowledge, even if it's not your content. It's just, you can be an aggregator. That's fine.